Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Here I am today in beautiful Sydney in an autumn sunny day down at Mrs. McCorry's chair in Sydney, down here with my lovely Guards Red GT3 997 Gen 2. Today I'm going to talk about my first impressions of the first 1,000 kilometers of owning this incredible car. Some people call it supercar. Yeah, just basically my honest, like I like to do, is like an honest review of what I think are the good things and the bad things about owning this car. And yeah, like if you own a high-end other kind of German car like a BMW or an Audi or Mercedes, like, you know, should you aspire to own one of these one day, or is you better off keeping your current M3 or something similar? You might want to keep your M3, so listen out to some of the pros and cons of owning this car as we're going through this video. But first of all, let's talk about some of the purchasing history of this car. So I've been looking for a GT3 for a couple of years. I think I mentioned this previously on my YouTube video, and yeah, it's pretty much a very hard car to find. I was being very particular and fussy around a very low kilometers example of a GT3, and I just two times in fact I came so close to buying one, and at the last minute the owner called me up and said, I just can't sell it. It's just such a great car. It's got under my skin, and withdrew the sale. So that was really unfortunate for me and upsetting, because I was so close to buying one. And then so my wife just said, let's buy another cheaper Porsche in the meantime. Bought the Carrera S convertible, or Cabriolet. Had a lot of fun with that. Owned it for 1 year, and then this particular one came up for sale. I was extremely lucky to find it come up for sale in Melbourne on Car Sales, which is the biggest Australian website for used cars here in Australia. And it's actually, I think everyone I've spoken to believes it to be the lowest kilometre GT3 in Australia. It has 8,700 kilometres on it, which is amazing because it's a 2010 car. So it was hardly driven, really. So and it was only one owner as well. Yeah, as I say, picked it up from, it was shipped up from Melbourne, or driven up on a trailer from Melbourne. Turned up, it's immaculate, no scratches, interior and out, perfect paintwork. And so a really good example of a Generation 2 997 GT3. And a lot of you probably will know from looking at my other YouTube videos that I was really wanted to buy a Gen 1 GT3 for, and that's what I was really looking for over that 2 year period. But after a couple of years, I managed to save up enough money from doing some extra work on the side, etc., as you do, to really just about afford a Generation 2 GT3. I looked at the differences between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, and I'll go more into those differences in another video. But I looked at those differences and I thought, look, just the all-round package is just that little bit better in a lot of areas for the Gen 2. So I just about could afford the Gen 2, so that's what I decided to buy when this Guards Red example came on the market. It sold within 2 days, and that's just how I guess rare they are, in the fact that it was only on the market for 2 days and I managed to grab it. So extremely lucky. This has been my dream car for many years, and I'm going to give an honest ownership view of what it's like to own one of these very special cars that a lot of people aspire to eventually to own in the garage one day. So first of all, let's go and have a closer look at some of the details on the car. We'll start on the outside and then jump inside and have a look at the inside. As mentioned before, this is a Generation 2 997 from 2010. Guards Red is the colour, and yeah, let's check out some of the details on the car. First of all, you can see one of the kind of main differences with the GT3 is a lot of the vents and everything like this here, where all the cool air comes in from in the front there, goes through a lot of radiators, all coolers, all that sort of stuff. It's open at the moment, so I'll show you inside in a second. That's not a bad shut line from Porsche, it's open. So yeah, loads of extra radiators and aero and cooling, everything down here compared to the the non-GT models, like the Carrera S I had before this car. And inside the luggage compartment, got 105 litres. Let me open this up so you can see inside. It's a bit smaller on the GT3 because this area here is a bit closer, so it makes the luggage compartment a bit smaller, but it's quite deep. Can you see inside? It's quite deep, so you can get quite a bit in there. Lots of, I mean, not suitcases, should we say, but lots of squishy bags and things like that. Let's shut this up. On the RS model, this is all carbon fibre up here, pretty sexy. Here it's aluminium. So wheels. I'll come around this side here and you can see because it's in the sunlight. It's a little bit of rust there because I just washed the car, and you know when you leave a car with the brake discs are a bit wet, the rust comes through. But the wheels are 19 inches, referring to my notes here. So they're 19 inches front and rear. They have centre lock wheels on the Generation 2, the Gen 1s don't. And on the front they're 235 profile, and on the back they're 305s. You can just really see how wide these tyres are down here. Let's have a look. You can see down the bottom here how wide those things are. So wide. So much, because there's so much power that this car puts down. All the weight's on the back, well not all the weight, but a lot of the weight is on the back, so the rear tyres really are kind of overly large to compensate really. Come back and look at the profile from the side. So it's 4.4 meters long. It's not that long, especially compared to the more modern 911s. It's 195 centimeters wide, that's including the mirrors, and it's 128 centimeters tall. So it's pretty low. You don't feel like tiny inside like you do, you know, like a Lotus, like I used to own in the past, where you do feel really, really small. Hang on, let's pan around this way. Oh, trying to get used to this new gimbal system I'm using here right now. But it's fairly low. But it does feel more compact on the road than a lot of more modern cars are, and that's what's really good about the 997. So as we come around to the rear of the car, the GT3's got this lovely big wing on it, as you can see here. The Gen 2 has the letters 3.8 on the wing here on the side. That just shows it's a 3.8 litre. You've got this lovely wing on the back. It's quite a bit bigger on the Gen 2 compared to the Gen 1, just for that extra downforce. You've also got this extra vent down here, which the Gen 1 doesn't have, to give extra cooling from the exhaust, so the heat from the exhaust doesn't go into the engine bay. If we open the back up, it's got a little gurney flap here as well for a bit of extra downforce. So there's the famous Mezger engine, originally from the GT1 Le Mans winning race car, and then going into the 996 GT3, then the 997 GT3, and now a little bit bigger in this one, and at 3.8 litres. It develops, if I look at my notes here, it develops a impressive 435 horsepower, which is 320 kilowatts. So it's a lot of power from a 3.8 litre flat six engine. Red line's at 7,600 RPM, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.1 seconds, and 12.3 seconds to get to 200 kilometers an hour. So it's a really quick car, and that's why it needs those really fat rear tyres that we saw earlier. Number plate on my car is 997MZG. That's because reference obviously to it being a 997, and MZG being the Mezger engine, the famous Mezger engine that is probably one of the most legendary engines from Porsche ever created. Right, let's go and have a sit in the car and have a look inside. Okay, so sitting inside the GT3, you can see that it doesn't look that different to like a normal Carrera model. I will point out some of the differences though. First of all, one difference between the GT3 Gen 1 and Gen 2 is obviously the center console. This is the main upgrade on the interior. This looks a lot more modern. It's this black color instead of this silver color that we had before. It's just a bit more modern and looks better. The black is a bit more premium looking. Around the heater controls area, it's all been upgraded as well. So it just looks a bit more special. One thing that's quite rare on the GT3s is this extended leather pack, which we have in this one. This is all covered in leather here. You can got the white stitching as well. It's got stitching across here from the leather pack as well, and the leather extends also right into the back around the speaker area, etc. there as well. So that was quite a fairly costly option and not very common on GT3s, so this car's quite rare and it's got that. What is pretty normal on the GT3s though is all this Alcantara. So you've got Alcantara covering the glove box, all across the doors here, all along the storage bins as well, all on the seats as well, along the steering wheel, along the gear shifter. It's pretty much all over the place. And what is Alcantara? Well, Alcantara is a pretty special material invented by NASA, which is very grippable antibacterial and flame resistant, and you do find it used in race cars and other applications where you need those properties, and it's what car guys love, so they love Alcantara and carbon fibre. The whole roof is Alcantara as well. So you can see up here, all covered in Alcantara. And it's a fairly expensive material, so to have that much all around the car is one reason it puts the premium, the price of the car up. So lots of Alcantara. That's one main difference between the GT3 and the normal Carrera and turbo interiors. And the other difference is obviously between Gen 1 and Gen 2 is the interior here is a bit more modern. So sitting inside, it doesn't feel that much of a different car, I guess. But when it does feel different is when you start it up. Let's just start it up now. You can see. It limits the throttle when you're just in neutral, just to protect itself. But it just feels like, although it looks very similar inside, when you start the car up, it just feels completely different. It just feels alive, and yeah, it just feels alive, and it has a personality and character. When me and my wife drove the car around the corner when we first got the car, she just said, she goes, it feels like a beast. She said, this car is a beast. That was her first impressions. It was quite interesting. So really the main difference is the engine. It just feels so different compared to the Carrera and turbo models when you start it up. It just feels raw. It has that lumpy idle feeling. It just feels very different. The other difference is when you pull away the suspension. The suspension is definitely firmer in the GT3, which you'd imagine. So when the PASM, which is the active suspension, is in the softest setting on the GT3, it feels like the hardest setting of the normal Carrera. You go down here, here's the PASM button. You press that to turn it on. It makes the suspension stiff, and then turning it off makes the suspension like softer. You really do need to leave it in the soft setting all the time driving around, and only put it in the hard setting when you're on the racetrack. That's pretty much the go. Pressing the sport button here is really good, makes the exhaust louder. Probably can't hear it on the video because I'm talking so much, but it makes it louder. And then this is the lifter, which raises the front up and down. When the front has come up, it will say lift, as you can see there, lift. Means the front has been lifted. I think it's by about 3 or 4 centimeters. Press it again and the front will go down. Very clever. Takes 2 seconds to drop down. There you go, lifter's finished. So yeah, so from the inside it doesn't feel that different. It's when you start the engine up, when you start driving, the suspension differences, the amazing throttle response, the power of the engine, that's where it really starts to come alive. So let's start with the pros. So the performance, the responsiveness, the character, it's hard to explain that kind of feeling, but it just feels alive. Like they've done an amazing job to make a car this exciting to drive. It just thrills you to drive it. I think the other pro is the famous Mezger engine that sits in the back, except for the 4 litre. This was the last ever time the Mezger engine made an appearance in a Porsche, and so that makes the car very special as well. And the 4 litre is just off the charts expensive now, so it's quite special to have it in this particular car. The other thing is this still has hydraulic steering, makes it feel really, really good from a handling perspective, and it's manual. It's probably one of the best feeling manual gearboxes I've ever driven. So the second best I've driven was in a Porsche Boxster Spider, and so that's another Porsche. It just feels like so precise, so direct, extremely well engineered. Incredibly, the fuel economy is actually pretty impressive as well. So on motorway drives, I get around 9.5 litres per 100. For the amount of power that it's got, it's amazing that it's got that much fuel economy. So that's just cruising with cruise control on the freeway. It actually does a good job. And really the car overall it's really in the sweet spot on size, power, weight. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's got lots of power, but not too much like some real big supercars do. It's not too heavy. It's like 1,300, just under 1,400 kilos unladen, which is really quite light very light compared to a lot of other powerful sports cars. And it's also in the sweet spot of technology. It has some technology, but not too much going on. It's got a bit of stability control, it's got a bit of traction control, it's got adjustable suspension, but it doesn't have crazy touchscreen buttons everywhere. And the last thing is, well, they're actually, people don't like to say buy a car for an investment, but this particular one is an investment in the sense that it's it cost me just under about $400,000 in Australia. It was a lot cheaper than that years ago, and it's got no signs of it going down in value. So it's an investment in that sense as well. Okay, but it's not the perfect car. You know, is there such thing as a perfect car? Although this is close to it. There are some cons. And what are those cons? Well, the fact that it is so expensive and it is going up in value does play on your mind a little as you own the car. You know, you do have to think about treating it, you know, with extra respect. It's, you know, it's an investment in the sense that it's going up in value. It's a very expensive car. You really do need to look after it. So, you know, you need to think there's an element of care there. The other downside, I guess, is when driving the car sedately, tyre noise above, say, I don't know, 70, 80 k's an hour. It's pretty noisy inside the cabin. That's from tyre noise coming into the cabin from the very wide and sticky tyres the car has, and it's pretty loud above that 80 k's an hour mark. So motorway journeys can get really tiring. They really can, just from the noise in the background. It's too noisy to be able to listen to the radio or streaming music or anything. When you're on the freeway, really enjoyably, it's too, yeah, you really need to crank it up. So it's so loud inside that actually on the freeway, my hands-free Bluetooth telephone is not working too well at the moment. It can't pick me up because of the tyre noise. And it's not engine noise, it's tyre noise. So changing the tyres might fix that. And because of that also, it is quite tiring to drive on long stints. So I think for me, I've driven this for a few thousand k's now, and I think for me, around the 3-hour mark is the most that you want to kind of drive this car. More than 3 hours, it's quite intensive, fun but intensive driving experience. More than 3 hours, it just kind of, it just really quite tiring. So it's best to jump in the car, up to 3 hours, go for a real good fang, drive it, really enjoy it, but I wouldn't recommend going longer than that per day. That's one of the differences between this and say the 911 Turbo or the Carrera or Carrera S. Those cars are a bit softer, a bit quieter. You can drive longer, full days and still feeling okay at the end. So apart from that, that's my pros and cons. I'm being really honest. It's not the best car in the world ever, but you probably would have noticed there's more pros than cons there. Has it fulfilled my dreams? Well, I'm only a couple of thousand k's in, so I think I will come back to you in subsequent videos and tell you more about my ownership experience of the amazing Porsche GT3. Cheers, thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more videos about this car, my Audi RS4, and my other third car, which is, you'll see it coming soon. Cheers, bye.